Hello, geometry students. Let's take out your notebooks and start getting down this information about transformations in your notes. So make sure to put the title and then the date at the upper corner of your notes, and then let's get started. So in this video, we're going to take a look at transformations. First off, let's define it. A transformation is a process of manipulating an image on a coordinate plane. So when I say manipulate, I mean you're either moving or somehow changing that image on the coordinate plane. And there are a couple of types of transformations that we're going to study in this course. We're going to look at translations, reflections, rotations, and dilations. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to get down that first piece of information for your notes. All right, so when working with transformations, transformations have a pre-image and an image. The pre-image is the shape or the image before you do any type of transformation. So before you translate it, reflect it, rotate it, or dilate it, that is called the pre-image. The result is called the image. So in this class and in math classes, your pre-image is labeled with capital letters. So for example, if I had a triangle, I would label the pre-image before I did any transformation to it as capital A, capital B, and capital C. After you do the transformation, the image is then labeled with the prime symbol. And the prime symbol is essentially just looks like an apostrophe after the capital letter. So for my image for this triangle, it would be A prime, B prime, C prime. And that little tick mark to the right of the letter is the prime symbol. It's kind of like an apostrophe. Go ahead and pause the video here again in case you need to get these more time, or in case you need more time to write all of this down. All right, so the first type of transformation that we're going to talk about is called a translation. So you should have this image to tape into your notebooks. If not, just make sure to leave space to the right so that you can glue it in or tape it in tomorrow. So a translation is when you push or slide a figure left, right, up, or down. And you can have movement both left and up or right and down. You can go in two directions at once. But just I wanted to make sure you could see that the translations, you do left, right, up, or down. You're just moving it or sliding it essentially. So what I did first here was I just labeled the coordinates of the pre-image. So the pre-image is capital A, capital B, capital C. So A was at -3, 1, B was at -1, 4, and C was at -2, -1. Then I wrote down the coordinates of the image, the result of the translation. So A prime is at 1, -2, B prime is at 3, 1, and C prime is at 2, -4. Just make sure to include that prime symbol there after the C. I put that in the wrong spot. Sorry about that. Just did it again. All right, so now we can figure out how was this figure translated? What was the movement from A to A prime? So you can use the graph and count. It might be actually to use the B coordinates because those aren't, you're not going to be overlapping over the triangle, or using the C coordinates. Whatever you do to one coordinate, the rule has to be the same for the other coordinates. So for example, I can look at the X movement. If I start at my image, I'm seeing how many spaces to the right did I count to get to B prime, and it looks like it's changing by 4. So mathematically, this makes sense because -1 plus 4 is 3. Then I'm looking at how many spaces did it move down. So this was 4 to the right. And now it looks like we went 3 down. So I'm going to subtract 3 when you move down. So getting from b to b prime, I added 4 to the x value and I subtracted 3 from the y value. You could do the same counting on your coordinate plane to see that the same thing happens for each coordinate, or we can just use the rule we just figured out. So here I know if I add 4, my a prime value should be at 1, and my b prime value is at, excuse me, my a prime value for the y value is -2. Same thing here for c. If I add 4 to the x value, that gets me to the c prime, and subtract 3 from the y value, that gets me to the y value for c prime. So we can write this with algebraic rules. Essentially, you have your coordinates from your original pre-image, and then you're either writing down what you're adding or subtracting with the x value or what you're adding and subtracting with the y value. So if you're adding something to the x value, that means you're moving the image to the right. If you are subtracting something with the x value, that means you're moving it left. If you're adding something to the y value, that means you're moving up. And if you're subtracting, that means you're moving down. So go ahead and pause the video again, make sure you have this down, and then there'll be one more question to respond to in the video.